What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this week's first exclusive segment from the greatest podcast on turf. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Anthony.
First, to start off, as you guys can see, the jersey, Michael Parsons, Dallas Cowboys beat the Vikings. He's supposed to be wearing Patriots. He's not. Anyways, this is our weekly waiver wire episode. There was some pretty bad injuries that have happened this last week. Halloween happened. Injuries happened. Be sure to listen. Be sure to check out our podcast where we did a recap of what happened last week. We touched on some football. We touched on Von Miller. We touched on Derrick Henry. We also touched on some basketball. We also touched on some college football. So be sure to check that out. And
we were joined by our boy Sam from over at Sam Sports Talk on the podcast this week. Be sure to click the link below and check that out. We discussed all things from Spencer Rattler to the World Series, to the Cowboys, to Derrick Henry, to the Sixers, to everything. We discussed it all pretty much, so be sure to check out this week's podcast with Sam. You guys know when we collab with Sam from Sam Sports Talk, we just produce nothing but absolute bangers and great content. So be sure to check it out. Like the video, subscribe if you're new. Be on the lookout for our Stardom Sit-ems Thursday, our weekly Pick'ems Thursday, and Friday for our Best Bets. Best Bets is currently still in the works. We had kind of a bad week, but our record's still very good. So be sure to check that out. Pick your waiver claims, check out the podcast. And with that being said, Ryan, here's a word from our sponsor.
Little Italy Pizzeria. They got the best cheesesteaks, the best pizza in all of Delaware. Come sit down, have some lunch, have some dinner, watch some football games you can't see, but TV there, TV there, TV there, TV there, TV on almost every single wall. So come in, check it out. It's great people, great food, great prices. Enough said.
Pretty much, link to their website brand new website is in the description below. Be sure to check out Little Italy. Let them know the greatest podcast on turf sent you for 10% off of your meal. Check out our TikTok page as well. You guys have been killing it on there. Check out our TikTok page. And you ready for who's the hottest waiver wire pickup this week? There's not a lot of like crazy ones like Alex Madison or like one of the Williams running backs, Daryl, Damian, how like they've been. Who do you think it is this week?
Like he said, there's not much. What happens today during the trade deadline could impact some things. So I'll start off with the Titans backup running back, whoever you think that may be. I would probably, put my money on Adrian Peterson. Darrington Evans is one of the options. I think McNichols is also an option. McNichols was the favorite, I would say, until AP got here. Now it's looking like it's probably going to be some sort of a committee. They have an ugly matchup against the Rams. I'm not really sure, what guy you want to sell out for here. If you're in a standard league, it would definitely probably be Adrian Peterson. PPR, you might lean towards McNichols. I'm pretty sure he had 3 receptions for 33 yards against the Colts when Derrick Henry, got banged up. So that's kind of up to you. Personally, I would probably go AP, and this isn't a great pickup, but this is just what I would do. And I would also look and pay attention to what happens today during the trade deadline. If Marlon Mack gets traded to the Titans, which is something that I would, want Marlon Mack. There was a lot of guys that were thrown out. Tyson Williams from the Ravens getting traded here. If one of these guys happens to get traded, definitely, do your due diligence and, really look into who's going to be the starter. Right now, as it stands, it's probably AP getting the early down goal line work. If something happens, like Marlon Mack, it's going to be Marlon Mack. So just do your due diligence. And, Titans backup running back. Derrick Henry's out 6 to 10 weeks. There is value in this backfield.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want our full thoughts on what the Titans should do, who we think, what's going to happen with the Titans, check out the podcast with Sam, link below. My first waiver wire pickup this week, this is kind of like we said, there's not really much. But I know we always say tight ends are far into and from between.
He messed that up, but send it.
But yeah, tight ends are a hot commodity pretty much. Pat Freiermuth from the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had 7 targets, 45 yards, and a touchdown. That ain't too bad for his first game as a starter. 14 PPR points. He had 12 the week before. He's having a pretty good year, and he was one of Ben Roethlisberger's favorite target, especially close to the red zone and downfield they got. Teams are starting to key on Claypool and Deontay Johnson downfield. So, if Ben Roethlisberger's not throwing a check down to Najee, he's looking for Pat Freiermuth. And, it seemed to pay off. Ebron was out. I mean, Ebron's not very good to begin with, and they did draft Pat Freiermuth in the second round to begin with. So, I mean, they obviously saw it there, and he led the team. He was second in the team in targets this week. So if you need a tight end, or if you're just have a bad matchup like Hunter Henry, he's got the the Patriots play the Panthers this week, who just held Kyle Pitts to absolutely nothing, and they've been good against tight ends this year. So if you have a bye or a bad matchup this week, look to inquire Pat Freiermuth this week. Probably won't let you down. The Steelers play the Bears, who haven't been very good against tight ends this year. So go ahead and acquire Pat Freiermuth if you can.
The next guy we'll be talking about, this is not a great pickup at all. This is a pickup if you need a running back to throw in there. It is Carlos Hyde going up against Buffalo. Carlos Hyde is 7% owned, and this is only because of the James Robinson foot injury. They said he avoided a serious injury, which is good news, obviously, for James Robinson owners and James Robinson. But Carlos Hyde, it looks like James Robinson's, he might be in doubt to play. He might be in question to play against Buffalo. Now, picking up and starting Carlos Hyde is not a pretty start at all, but it is a volume start. Travis Etienne's obviously out for the season. James Robinson, if he misses a game, Carlos Hyde will most likely be the only guy there. And with that being said, I mean, sometimes that's the best thing that you can ask for in terms of...
You're good.
In terms of...
Yeah, it's all right.
I walked in here not even fucking thinking about you guys were over here.
No, it's all good, bro. Just recording the greatest podcast on turf. No big deal.
Yeah. I saw the fucking light. They're probably in the middle of something. My ass walks in.
It's all good.
In terms of, plugging in a starting running back, sometimes that's the best you can do. So go ahead and start Carlos Hyde. Well, not start, but go ahead and pick him up against Buffalo. It's not pretty, but he is a starter.
Absolutely, and Little Italy's finest, ladies and gentlemen. Best delivery driver in the state.
That's me, motherfucker.
Little Italy's finest. Best customer service, best employees around.
Sorry, viewers.
As you can see.
Good, bro. I'm sorry.
Now you're good, dog. But next one, Carl, definitely a lot of ugly waiver wire pickups this week. Carlos Hyde, I mean, a couple of the other guys who I'm going to say on my list.
This guy's alright, though.
Yeah, but the next guy...
He's actually had a pretty sneaky season.
Yeah, absolutely. Next guy, we got Darnell Mooney, Mr. Money with 2 O's. Led the team in targets against the 49ers, 9 targets, about 70 yards receiving. He's really not having a bad year. It's just the games he has a good game. He usually has a bad game the next week, which kind of sucks in this case. But, excuse me. The Bears are playing the Steelers this week. Has the makings to be kind of a high score, a lot of passing like we saw. I got a fucking friggin' scratch in my throat. But yeah, the Steelers and Browns threw the ball a lot, and it was a low score. I mean, that's what we could see with the Bears and the Steelers this week. Darnell Mooney, like I said, 9 targets. He seems to be Justin Fields' favorite target from what we've seen from him. I mean, Allen Robinson don't really get much love from Justin Fields. It seems to be the Darnell Mooney show over there. And I mean, Darnell Mooney's only rostered in 42% of leagues. I know there's a couple bye weeks coming up, a couple of receivers that haven't been good. I know Darnell Mooney's probably not a plug-and-play start in most leagues, but if you're in a deeper league or you just need a waiver wire pickup this week, Darnell Mooney, I mean, numbers don't lie. He's having a pretty good fantasy football season, especially for PPR. So, I mean, if you just need a PPR guy, I mean, 9 targets says a lot. I look at targets when I'm looking at receivers. 9 targets. What did he have before? 5 targets.
Yeah,
this
this tied for a season most, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, Darnell Mooney gets a lot of targets. I mean, if you get a lot of targets here, I mean, you're bound to produce some at some point, especially for PPR. So go ahead and grab Darnell Mooney if you need him, and go ahead and even start him in some leagues if you're deeper.
I'll throw out another guy on the Chicago Bears. It is Justin Fields. He doesn't have a great matchup next week against the Steelers, and then he goes on a bye. But he had 100 rushing yards, and that is something that you want to look out for. Running quarterbacks always do great. Justin Fields had 100 yards, so be on the lookout for that. But jumping into my next guy is Rashad Bateman going up against Minnesota. He's been coming off of an injury. He had 80 yards last 2 weeks ago, coming off of a bye week. And I think that Rashad Bateman could be a pretty decent receiver on this Baltimore offense. This is kind of taking a shot, just kind of seeing what upside you had. He was a first-round pick. He's only 31% owned, and he has a really, really easy schedule coming up. I believe like his next 5 or 6 games are all in the green in terms of allowing the most points to receivers. So Rashad Bateman, he's a guy that you probably want to look out for. You might not have to pick him up on waivers because not a lot of people know about him. So the day after waivers, go ahead and add him on your team. And if you have the space, see what happens. There's some bye weeks this week. I think there's 6 teams on bye this week.
I know the Bucks are on bye.
The Buccaneers is definitely one of them. So
and that's a big one too, because you're losing 2 top fantasy receivers there.
Yeah. So if you need a receiver, look at Rashad Bateman.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna move on to probably 2 of the ugliest waiver wire pickups in history.
Nice.
Name wise, we got 2 of them: Boston Scott and Jordan Howard, the Eagles running backs. It seems as though now that Miles Sanders is hurt, now the Eagles want to run the ball 100 times a game, and Jalen Hurts just not do anything. Who's on by? Lions, Seahawks, Bucks, Washington. Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. 5 top receivers. Receivers are going to be a hot commodity this week. Listen to the greatest podcast on turf and pick up the receivers. But now I'm going back to what I was saying. Boston Scott, he finished with 18 PPR points. He had 60 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. He only had 1 target in the passing game, but to be fair, the Eagles threw the ball maybe 20 times total. Because Jalen Hurts had like 10 points fantasy. Not good. But yeah, Boston Scott, we knew he was going to probably come in with Jordan Howard coming back off of IR and it being his first game back. But even Jordan Howard produced 60 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. The tandem both had the same amount of rushes. Both had around the same amount of yards and 2 touchdowns as well. To be fair, Jordan Howard didn't really get involved in the passing game at all. But like I said, the Eagles didn't throw the ball much. I know this is kind of risky to pick up an Eagles running back, but considering the Damian Harris and friends and my Patriots just ran all over the Chargers this week, Jordan Howard and Boston Scott are both pretty safe pickups and maybe even safe plays this week. It's a little bit risky, but if you're willing to take the gamble, or you're just down bad at running back because you lost a Derrick Henry, a Saquon, a Nick Chubb, a Kareem Hunt, a David Montgomery. You may have to start Jordan Howard or Boston Scott, so if you need to, I'm not going to blame you for it. Go ahead and pick them up. They have a good matchup this week.
Yeah, personally, I'm not biting on these Eagles running backs, but, I can see the vision, especially if they keep doing what they did last week. But jumping into my quarterback streamer, it is Derek Carr going up against the Giants. He is 62% owned. He's coming off of a bye week. Derek Carr has been pretty good so far this year. He's top 5 in passing yards, I believe. At least before the bye week, he definitely was. And the Giants are a team that ranks 12th against quarterbacks, which isn't very good at all. The Raiders have been playing decent football. Darren Waller, I believe, is going to be coming back, most likely, I would say. And the Giants, they haven't been very good on defense. They lost Jabril Peppers for the year. So go ahead and start Derek Carr as a streamer quarterback for this week. A couple guys could be hurt, as in Kyler Murray. Tom Brady's on a bye. So just be sure to check Derek Carr out.
Yeah, the Giants are down 7-0 to the Chiefs right now. Mahomes threw a touchdown to Tyreek Hill.
Nice.
They're playing right now. And this final guy who was on my list is, how many? What do you have? 1 more? 2 more?
I have 1 more.
The last guy on my list, ugliest. I know. I know it's a very bad and ugly name for fantasy football purposes. You probably drafted him too high and he sucked this year. I know you don't agree with this one from what we talked about, but I look at targets. Brandon Aiyuk. I know. He had 7 targets, 50 yards. Got targeted in the red zone on a 2-point conversion. That was the big deal when he had his good game against Green Bay. He was getting targeted a lot in the red zone. I didn't watch any of this game at all, so I couldn't really tell you what happened. But just going off of numbers, looked like Brandon Aiyuk had a okay week. He had 10 PPR fantasy points, the second highest of the year. This is more of a name to watch out for. Just if you need him, pick him up. But I personally am not comfortable with putting Brandon Aiyuk in my lineup anymore. But like I said, if you're down bad at receiver, if you lost one of the receivers we talked about, go ahead and pick up Brandon Aiyuk, stash him on the team. Can't really blame you. He's a big name. They play the Cardinals this week. They're going to have to throw the ball. So, maybe Brandon Aiyuk will have another good game and kind of get hyped. But it's kind of too tough to tell. He's been very bad this year.
Jumping into my streamer defense this week, it is the Saints defense going up against the Falcons. The Saints are 46% owned. They have been a pretty decent defense so far. they just did very good against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in terms of creating turnovers. And now they play against the Falcons, who aren't very good. They just lost their top target in Calvin Ridley. So it's really just Kyle Pitts. That's kind of it. So the Saints defense should have a really good day against the Falcons. Also, a couple of names to look out for. I already mentioned Justin Fields, and I also mentioned Marlon Mack. If Marlon Mack gets traded to a team where he can start, be sure to pick him up.
Yeah, watch out for Justin Fields. Ryan already said to watch out for him. We got another name to watch out for, Russell Gage. I mean, that's just literally just look out. I mean,
Don't look.
I have them on my watch list just because they don't have a receiver anymore. I couldn't tell you a receiver on the team now that Calvin Ridley took a step away. But a big one right now, the Giants wide receivers. I know there's a lot of them. They're all banged up. Kenny Galladay's banged up, but Kadarius Toney and Sterling Shepard are back in the lineup this week. They're playing right now. So if Kadarius Toney or Sterling Shepard has a good game, check out targets, check out production, check out where they were targeted before you look and picking them up. I personally picked up Kadarius Toney, and I have Sterling Shepard stashed. So, I mean, look to inquire one of those guys if they have a good game tonight, which they really, really could against the Chiefs defense, who was like bottom 5 in passing defense this year.
Chiefs are going to roll. Anyways, Michael Gallup is another guy that you might want to look out for coming off of an injury.
Yeah, pretty much that sums it up. Be sure to submit your waiver claims. Check out all of our content later in the week. Check out our podcast with Sam. You do not want to miss it. We absolute banger of a podcast. Check it out. Keep showing us love. Show us some love on TikTok as well. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on Thursday with our Stardom Sit-Ems and our weekly Pick'em Parlay series. Best Bets Friday. TikToks every day. Check us out. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Peace.